who are you really? Like, I mean, have you ever just stopped and like actually thought about that? It's a question that's probably crossed your mind a time or two, right? We're going to dive deep into that very question today using this video called "This Video Might Trigger Enlightenment Vibration of the Universe" as our guide. It's all about exploring that true self. And we're going to use this video to kind of guide us along the way. Let's see if we can like peel back some layers and uncover what makes you you.
Sounds pretty deep.
It is. It is. One of the first things this video talks about is how we tend to define ourselves,
Mm.
by all the external stuff, like our names, jobs, relationships. It's like we're all carrying around this mental resume. Do you find yourself doing that sometimes?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it makes sense in a way, right? Society kind of pushes us in that direction. They tell us, we're valuable because of what we do and what we've achieved. But this deep dive really wants us to like look beyond those, external labels.
Right. And that reminds me of this analogy the video uses, comparing the body to like a vessel. Our bodies change constantly throughout our lives, but there's still this persistent sense of meanness, right? What's your take on that? Is there something unchanging that like persists through all those changes?
Yeah.
What is it that makes us who we are?
Yeah, the video brings up this idea of an observer, this like silent witness to the flow of our thoughts and emotions. It's like imagine you're sitting on a beach watching the waves cresting and crashing. Those waves, those are like your thoughts and feelings, but you, the observer, you stay separate. You're that constant presence amidst this like ever-changing mental landscape.
Wow, that's such a vivid image. So if I'm getting this right, the observer is that part of us that's not caught up in all the drama of our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
Like we're just taking a step back and witnessing our own minds at work.
Exactly. And the video suggests that this observer is a glimpse into our true nature, that core of our being that exists beyond all the ups and downs of the mind.
Makes you wonder how much we define ourselves by our past. The good stuff, the bad stuff, all those stories we tell ourselves about who we are. What happens if we just let go of those stories? Does it change who we are at our core?
That's a big question, isn't it? The source material seems to think that holding on to the past, even the good parts, can actually limit our understanding of who we are. It keeps us looking backwards instead of being present in the now.
It's like we're so busy replaying these old mental movies that we're missing the main feature happening right in front of us. The video talks about deep meditation and how it can lead to this state of pure being, where all those roles and labels just fade away. Can you even imagine that? A state of pure being.
I think so. And it all connects to this idea of pure consciousness that the source describes, something that exists beyond our individual minds, beyond time and space. It's like the fundamental ground of being. And meditation is all about tapping into that pure awareness, experiencing reality beyond all the mental constructs we create.
So you're saying there's this deeper awareness that exists underneath all the labels and stories we tell ourselves. It's like there's a part of us that's always connected to something way bigger, something universal.
Exactly. And that connection is a major theme in the source material. It argues that the same essence that like animates us is present in all life. Do you ever just stop and think about that? How interconnected we all are.
It blows my mind sometimes when I really think about it.
Yeah.
But if we're all connected, why is there so much division and separation in the world?
That's where the ego comes in. It creates that sense of separation of me versus them. The video describes the ego as like this mask we wear, a persona we develop to navigate the world. And while it has its uses, it can also like cloud our perception and make us feel separate from others.
So the ego, it's both useful and kind of a trap.
You could say that, yeah. And that's something we'll dig into more in part 2 of this deep dive. We'll explore the nature of the ego, how it affects our lives, and how we can move beyond its limitations to experience a greater sense of wholeness and connection. Welcome back. So we've been talking about this observer, that constant presence amidst all the chaos of our thoughts and emotions. Pretty wild concept, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But I remember you mentioned the ego earlier and how it like creates this illusion of separation. I want to dive into it a bit more.
Yeah.
What exactly is the ego? And how does it mess with our, understanding of ourselves?
Well, the source material describes the ego as like this mental construct, this collection of beliefs, stories, and all the stuff we identify with that we kind of pick up along the way. It's almost like a persona we create to navigate the world, and it does serve a purpose. It helps us function, in society, set boundaries, and achieve goals.
So you're saying the ego isn't necessarily a bad thing?
Not inherently, no. The video makes it clear that the ego is just a part of being human. The trouble starts when we get too wrapped up in it, when we start to believe that I guess who we are. That's when we start to see the world through this super limited lens.
What kind of limitations are we talking about here?
Well, the source material points out that like an overactive ego can lead to this constant need for validation, comparison, competition. We start to measure our worth by, external things like accomplishments, what we own, social status, that kind of thing. And that can be a recipe for a whole lot of dissatisfaction and insecurity.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, we've all been there, right? Feeling less than or not good enough because we're comparing ourselves to everyone else. It's like this never-ending cycle of trying to prove ourselves.
Exactly. And the source material suggests that practices like mindfulness and meditation can help us break free from that. They allow us to step back from the ego's control and reconnect with our true nature, that essence of being that exists beyond all those mental constructs.
Okay, now that's where things start to get really interesting. How do mindfulness and meditation actually like shift our perspective? What do they have to do with the ego?
Well, think of mindfulness like attention training. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the present moment without judging them. Just by observing these mental processes, you create space between you and all that ego chatter.
So instead of being totally consumed by our thoughts and emotions, we learn to just observe them.
Precisely. And as you practice mindfulness, you start to realize that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that's experiencing them.
It's almost like mindfulness is a way to tap into that observer we talked about, that silent witness inside all of us.
You got it. And meditation takes it a step further. It's this more concentrated practice of quieting the mind and connecting with this deeper sense of peace and stillness. And in that stillness, we can glimpse our true nature, that essence of being that exists beyond the ego's limits.
Quieting the mind. That sounds like a real challenge, especially in today's world with all the distractions. Is this something anyone can do, or does it require, years of dedicated practice?
The video emphasizes that these practices are for everyone. You don't have to become a monk or anything to experience the benefits. Even just a few minutes each day can make a difference.
So it's all about incorporating these practices into our everyday lives, finding those little pockets of stillness amidst all the busyness.
Yep.
Yep.
And here's where things get even more interesting. The source material also highlights the importance of self-inquiry as a way to kind of dismantle the ego's hold on us.
Self-inquiry. What is that?
It's about asking yourself these deep, probing questions that challenge your assumptions about who you are. The video gives some examples like, what is the source of my emotions? Who is the I that experiences these things? What am I truly seeking in life?
Whoa, those are some seriously big questions. I can see how thinking about those could really shake things up and lead to some, profound insights. But I imagine it could also be kind of challenging and maybe even uncomfortable at times.
Oh, for sure. Self-inquiry can bring up all sorts of uncomfortable emotions and challenging realizations. That's why the source really emphasizes the importance of self-compassion as you're going on this journey of self-discovery.
So it's all about being kind to ourselves,
Yeah.
as we're exploring these deeper parts of who we are, not beating ourselves up if we find stuff we don't like.
Exactly. Self-compassion creates this safe and supportive space for this inner exploration. Remember, this is a process of uncovering, understanding, and ultimately accepting yourself more fully. It's about letting go of the stories you've been telling yourself and embracing the truth of who you are with all its complexities.
That reminds me of something else the source material talks about. This idea that we're all interconnected, that we're not as separate as we think. How does that fit into this whole discussion of the ego and self-discovery?
That's a great question, and it's actually something we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've been on this journey, exploring this huge question. Who are you, really? We talked about the observer, the ego, mindfulness, even self-inquiry. But there's this one piece we haven't really gotten into yet, interconnectedness.
Right, and the video really hammers this home. Like we are all a part of this massive web of existence. It's not just some feel-good idea. It actually like changes how we see ourselves and the world around us.
So how does seeing ourselves as interconnected change things? Like, what's the big deal?
Well, first off, it challenges that whole ego thing, that separation thing. If we're all connected, the lines between me and you get kind of blurry.
You mean like instead of seeing ourselves as these like isolated individuals all competing with each other, we start to see this common thread that links us all together.
Exactly. It's like shifting from a me perspective to a we perspective.
Yeah.
And that changes everything, especially when it comes to things like empathy and compassion.
Yeah, it's harder to like, dismiss someone or treat them badly when you see them as part of the same, fabric of existence.
Exactly. The source material actually presents this interconnectedness as a path to healing. for ourselves and for like the whole world. When we recognize our shared humanity, it creates this feeling of belonging, kindness, responsibility for each other.
That makes sense. So how do we actually tap into this sense of interconnectedness? Is it just something we think about, or are there things we can actually do to make it more real?
Definitely things we can do. The video talks about cultivating appreciation for all forms of life, even simple things like spending time in nature, really noticing the beauty of a flower or like the complexity of an ant colony. It helps us feel more connected to the whole web of life.
So it's about shifting our focus outward
Hmm.
from ourselves to like the bigger picture, seeing that interconnectedness in everyday things.
Exactly. And it also impacts how we treat others. Acts of kindness, compassion, understanding, all of that becomes an expression of this interconnectedness.
So it's not just about thinking about it, it's about like living it.
Totally. It's about aligning our actions with this understanding that we're all part of something way bigger. And the source material suggests that this way of being leads to a more, fulfilling and meaningful life.
It's kind of mind-blowing, right?
Mm.
That by just shifting our perspective and our actions, we can tap into this deeper sense of purpose and connection.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope you leave with this sense of wonder about who you are and your place in this interconnected world.
This whole deep dive has definitely got me thinking about, how much more there is to discover about myself and like the nature of reality. It's a journey that doesn't end here, does it?
Nope, not at all. It's a lifelong exploration, but as you continue on this path of self-discovery, just remember this key takeaway from the source material. You are not alone. We are all in this together, interconnected beings on this shared journey of awakening.
I love that. And to everyone listening out there, we hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity, maybe some new questions, and a deeper sense of connection to yourselves and the world around you. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.